to know whether or not these are actually caused by NGRXB, again, you would need a properly randomized placebo-controlled study, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But this study wasn't done pre-licensure for this vaccine, right?
I'd have to go back and look at the original studies, but these data undoubtedly refer not only to the study that was done before licensure, but also to phenomena reported after licensure.
That's 6.2, right? Okay, and again, given that this vaccine now appears on the CDC's recommended list, it would be unethical to do a randomized placebo-controlled study of this vaccine, right?
In children, it would be unethical. It could be done in adults.
Oh. Okay. Now, if you could please go to page 11 of this same manufacturer insert for the hepatitis B. If you take a look over there, I think you'll find that it provides that there was a follow-up with regard to efficacy, not safety, efficacy, that was beyond the 4 days.
Yes.
Do you see there that there was a 12-month and an 18-month follow-up?
Yes.
Okay. So just to be clear, efficacy of the vaccine was followed up for at least 12 months, for 18 months, but safety was only done for 4 or 5 days.
I do not agree with that statement.
Okay.
I do believe that GSK, like any other company, would have followed their patients much longer than 4 days and would have collected reaction data.
And if they didn't do that, you would agree that that is completely inadequate in terms of assessing safety pre-licensure?
I would say that would be inadequate, yes.
Do you agree with the CDC's recommendation that babies receive a hepatitis B on the first day of life?
Yes.
And these are the NGRXB and Recombavax HB are the only 2 hepatitis B vaccines approved for 1-day-old babies, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And why is that?
You
may ask. It is because if the baby is not vaccinated, well, I'm telling you that if a baby is not vaccinated at 1 day of age, transmission may occur from an infected mother, and hepatitis B occurring in babies is likely to become chronic and to cause serious disease later in life. Okay. That's why the dose is given at 1 day of age.
I wasn't asking you any questions about efficacy or
but
why
I'm telling
it's done.
you why it's given.
Thank you, but obviously I'm just trying, like any product, obviously you want to have informed consent, understand the risks and the benefits, and I'm just trying to understand what was done pre-licensure for these vaccines, and I think you've explained that to me. One of the things you've said in the past, and I believe, is that without a control group in a clinical trial, you're in la-la land, right? You said that one time, do you recall?
Without a control group, if you're looking for a phenomenon occurring in the vaccine group, you cannot judge that phenomenon without having a control group.
Okay. There's only one standalone polio vaccine currently licensed in the United States, correct?
Well, as far as licensure, I think both oral and inactivated vaccines are licensed, but the only one that is used in the U.S. currently is the inactivated one.
IPV.
Yes.
Right, and there's only one company, Sanofi. There's only one IPOL by Sanofi, correct?
Yes.
Okay. A vaccine, you strike that. How long was the safety review for each dose of IPOL in the preclinical trials for that vaccine?
I do not know offhand, but Counselor, IPV has been used throughout the world for years in millions of people, and safety data have been collected on many such studies, and essentially serious reactions to IPV are extremely rare. So IPV is a very safe vaccine.
I'm asking you in the pre-licensure clinical trial for...
That goes back to Jonas Salk, where where millions of children actually were vaccinated with IPV back in the 50s.
And is there clinical trial data on safety?
Yes.
Okay, and is that the same vaccine that's used today?
Yes.
Are you prepared to produce that clinical data? Yeah.
Those data are in this book, and I'll be glad to provide you with the references if you really insist. But IPV, as I've said, has been used in millions and millions of people.
If it's so safe, then how come the safety review period for the pre-licensure clinical trial as provided in the manufacturer insert for IPOL only reviewed safety for 48 hours?
Once again, I have no doubt that safety observations were made after 48 hours, but they expected that immediate reactions such as a sore arm or fainting or something like that would have happened within 48 hours. And also, I'm sure that they're talking about their own specific production of IPV and not relying on the millions of other people who have been vaccinated with IPV.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Exhibit 12. This is the manufacturer insert for the IPOL, poliovirus vaccine inactivated. If you could please turn to section 6.1. Dr. Plotkin. Well, this is an older one. If you could turn to the adverse reactions, which is on page 12. 14.
Preserves the objection. To my understanding, Dr. Plotkin had no role in the study design. You're asking to speculate as to the reasoning of other people that he had no contact with.
Okay. He's testifying that my client should receive this vaccine. I could certainly ask him about the pre-licensure clinical trials that were done to assess its safety. And you put him up as an expert in vaccinology. But your objection is noted and preserved for the record. Thank you, Counselor. Okay, so if you go to page 14, Dr. Plotkin, how long does it say that that adverse reactions were observed after vaccination?
48 hours.
Okay. And did the subject group that received IPV only receive IPV, or did they receive another vaccine along with it?
Concurrently with DTP.
Uh-huh. And what did the control group receive?
I don't see that stated.
If DTP is given along with IPV, how could you know whether a reaction was caused by DTP or IPV?
You could not.
Okay.
However, they do say these systemic reactions were comparable in frequency and severity to that reported for DTP given alone without IPV.
And DTP was the vaccine we talked about earlier that was withdrawn from the market, correct?
Yes.
For safety issues. Okay. The only MMR vaccine available in the United States are made by Merck, correct?
Correct.
Okay. how long was the safety review? Do you know how long the safety review period for each dose of MMR in the pre-licensure clinical trials for this vaccine?
Sorry, say it again, Kathy.
I'm so sorry.
Some of the words are just...
No problem. Do you know how long the safety review period for each dose of MMR in the pre-licensure clinical trial was for this vaccine?
Not offhand. The vaccine has only been used now for about 50 years.
Okay. Dr. Plotkin, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 13. This is the manufacturer insert for MMR2, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If you go to the precaution section, I'm sorry, the adverse reaction section, I apologize, on page 6, what you'll find is that there was no clinical trial prior to licensure for MMR, correct?
I doubt very much that's the case.
You're not aware that are you aware that it is a grandfathered product?
I am not aware that it's grandfathered. I was alive and well when the product was first licensed, and it was tested extensively before it was licensed. So to say that it hasn't been tested is absolute nonsense.
How come there is no clinical trial data in the manufacturer insert?
That is something that the FDA would have decided isn't necessary.
Are you willing
But
to?
We're talking about a vaccine that's been given to millions of children, and I insist on this point, that measles is now a relatively rare disease in the United States because most children receive measles MMR vaccine. That, however, since 2000, because of children who have not been vaccinated, there have been 24 cases of measles encephalitis and 3 deaths caused by measles itself.
Dr. Plotkin, we'll get to that piece of this,
yeah.
But right now I'm trying to talk to you about the pre-licensure clinical safety. Okay,
and what I'm telling you is that millions of doses have been used of this vaccine.
I understand you want
and
to
that there was pre-licensure trials,
okay,
which I am absolutely confident about.
Okay.
And you're talking about stuff that's in a package circular that the FDA has approved in full knowledge that safety and efficacy have been demonstrated.
So you're saying there were clinical trials before the MMR was licensed?
Absolutely.
Is that correct? Okay, and you can provide those?
You can find them in this book if you wish.
So you're saying you won't provide them?
Well, yes, I guess I am saying I won't provide them. If you want to take the trouble to read the book.
Okay, so sitting here today, when did these? Can you tell me what year these clinical trials occurred?
Yes, they were done in the 1960s and mainly in the 1960s.
So you're claiming something happened, but you're not willing to provide any proof that it happened.
The proof is in the publications, which you can read.
Can you please turn to the page where it's in there? I'd like to note for the record that Dr. Plotkin has been reading from his notes as well as looking through a book entitled Plotkin Vaccines, 7th edition.
So on pages, let's see. between pages 592 and 600, including tables that show the antibody responses, proportion of children with fever and rash after measles vaccine, etc., and the numerous references which go with this chapter.
So are you saying that that was a pre-licensure clinical trial?
Yes.
That you just read from?
Yes, but again, I insist that pre-licensure or post-licensure, the fact remains that the vaccine has been studied extensively over a period of 50 years.
I understand you want us to just take your word for it, but I prefer to rely on science, peer-reviewed publications.
That's
and
what you'll
clinical
find
trials.
in there.
And so, I understand that you're getting a little upset about me trying to ask for the data, but I'm just trying to get to the substance. The FDA it requires that clinical trials be on the insert. They're not here. Okay? So you're saying that this table, and let me take a look at it. This would have been post-licensure, not pre-licensure, and it doesn't indicate a placebo group, nor that it was. So this is not a clinical trial as far as I can tell. Can you point me to something that had a placebo group and was pre-licensure, please, sir?